Great. Well, thank you for coming to my session here. An introduction to FileMaker DevOps with a developer tool that I've developed, or that my team has developed, called Devin. This will not be like an in-depth product demo, as you might expect. That's what I've done previously. This is actually more taking a step back and looking into like why is this necessary? Why are we talking about DevOps? DevOps has been a problem for FileMaker, and so I'm going to show you some different like scenarios of kind of like common challenges that we experience as FileMaker developers, and then how our tool is actually like solving these issues. Yeah. So the agenda. Briefly introduce me, and then I will show a few different scenarios, different kind of scenarios, both if you're like a solo developer, if you're used to collaborate on projects, and also for more advanced setups where you might have multiple server environments, for instance. So I'll show some challenges, and then we will later on see how they are solved. Then I will introduce Devin, show a short video, a small demo, and then show how it solves the challenges, and lastly give like a short like product roadmap of where we're going, and what is missing, and what we are missing from Claris in order to end the loop. And lastly, a Q&A session where we can also do like kind of like a live demo depending on any questions you might have. So I expect to have maybe like a 20-30 minute Q&A. I intend that to be like a long thing. So me, I have previously had a FileMaker consultancy company. I kind of still do a little bit. So I know the struggles of FileMaker. I did that from 2012. I accidentally stumbled into FileMaker like in an internship where I knew nothing about tech at all. Then I previously had another startup where I developed some AI tools for farmers, really scalable cloud stuff. So yeah, I also do like Python and other cloud technologies. And now I'm full-time on Devin. I have a master's degree from the IT University of Copenhagen. I'm from Denmark, just over here. And actually my thesis was to develop this tool. So I spent a lot of like market analysis. And yeah, in a thesis you really have to back up all your solutions by results and stuff like that. So I can back it up theoretically, at least. And actually on our website you can actually download the thesis to see if you would like to see the background. Yeah. Outside of work, I'm a private in the Danish defense as well. So to look at these kind of common challenges that you experience in FileMaker, I have three different categories, as I mentioned before. So you might not agree with all of these scenarios. You know, we're all different and we all have different kind of FileMaker environments, stuff like that. But these are three kind of like categories. The solo development, you're a single developer and you might do local or even live development. You know, a lot of us have done live development, a lot are still doing live development because it's easy, right? Collaborative development, where you're multiple developers, you might even have a development server in place. And then lastly, the more advanced setup where you have maybe multi-file solutions and multiple environments. You might use tools like Auto, stuff like that, to do deployments. So starting off with solo development, imagine that you are a solo developer, you do local development on your computer, you don't have a development server. You do development on your file, but what about your versions? Like you constantly do like a command D maybe on the file to duplicate the file, you rename the file, you have your own folder structure, you know, right? It can be like _finish1, like you have all sorts of those names. And then if you are even using if you're not doing like live development, you may need to upgrade this solution or update the solution running on a production server. So you have some manual file moving around to that server. You have to use the data migration command line tool manually via the command line, or maybe use Auto. But there's still some manual stuff going on there, right? And then finally, you have to then transfer the file to that server. If you're using Auto, that's easy. If not, you have to do like a it takes time to transfer a large file to the server. So it's just a big hassle, right? If you do live development, things become easier, but also, you know, more fragile, and this is what we would like to avoid doing, because it can be really critical. It might be okay for small solutions, but we try to stay away from this. But the reason why we do this is because the previous one was very like cumbersome, right? So the challenges for local development is that you would need large storage on your computer. Say that you have a huge file that you need to migrate, put some storage requirements to your computer. You have to manually do copies and file handling. You have slow file transfers to and from the servers, and you have to manually use the data migration command line tool. For live development, the main challenges would be a high risk of data loss, so that you mess something up while users are connected maybe, and you need also to manage like downtime. You may also need to schedule this development, because maybe you don't want to do the development while users are connected to the system. So it becomes hard to manage. And it's really hard to roll back. Like if you mess something up, of course you can have your FileMaker backup schedules, but there might have been something that is a bit harder to revert. And you have no history of the changes that you made. You may do that in your scripts, you may do like comments, or you may have a separate changelog document, but you still have to do it, like manage that manually. Now imagine that now the fictive company that we're talking about, they're now 2 developers. So now you start having trouble about how do we collaborate on a FileMaker file. Some companies work on the same file. That can be great, then can be difficult, because you cannot always work in the same tables and same layout, same script, stuff like that. You have to take that into account. So what many companies tend to do is that they split that out, so they work on each copy. So they have 1 copy each on a development server. But then it becomes really difficult, like, because you cannot merge any of these files, so it becomes really hard to find out who made what changes. So you tend to, if you have these 2 different copies, you want to either like replicate these changes on the production server. So you take these 2 files, and then you spend a week looking in scripts on who made what, and so you have to decide on which one is the correct version, and you replicate a combination of changes in this file. Super cumbersome. The challenges here was that, you know, what was previously easy becomes hard, because it's really hard to collaborate on FileMaker files. You still have to do some manual file handling on the server, and you have no change tracking. You still don't have a change log. You have no transparency who made what change. So that's difficult to do when you're working on shared remote files. It's also hard to present these changes if you're in meetings for customers or internal meetings to show what changes you made. Yeah. Now imagine that this company grew even more. Now you have 3 developers. You might have 10, 20 developers. This only becomes more difficult. You might also have a test server, a UAT staging server that you deploy to test something. Maybe you have a client that accesses this UAT server. And then you want to deploy this to a production server. What version is on what server? Then you made some changes back in dev. How are they deployed? You don't really know. And you might also be deploying directly from the development server to the production server. Versioning becomes kind of a nightmare. So as I said, you don't really have an overview of the servers and what versions exist on the servers. And if you need to roll back, it's really hard, again, because of the versioning. And if you have vertical solutions, you have to do a lot of like manual deployments. Maybe you only want to update one of them. Maybe you want to update all at the same time. Maybe you do some custom development for one customer. That's hard. So I experienced some of these issues myself. So in my master thesis, I went out and said, okay, I want to solve this with a goal of making a DevOps platform for FileMaker. And DevOps, if you're not familiar with the term DevOps, it stands for Developer Operations, and it's basically describing the whole life cycle of a software solution, all the way from development to production. So all the development you do, you may do some testing and then roll out of the updates. So I did 1 year of research. We did 2 years of development, and the team grew. I became more than just me doing this. And we wanted to make an integrated solution that handles the whole DevOps process, because that's the problem with a tool like Otto. It's solely the deployments, but we focus a lot on also the versioning. It also needs to be easy to use, and needs to fit into this Apple ecosystem design-wise as well. And we wanted to support more than one developer, support multi-file solutions, and also to support multiple deployment environments. So I'll show a short demo of the tool here. So we made Devin, an all-in-one platform to manage versions, testing, and data migrations for FileMaker. And this, in fact, is a FileMaker file itself. So you manage your projects and files. Here I have my app open. I can open up a project. I can see the different branches that I have of a file. We can talk later in the Q&A about branches. But here I can connect directly to a development file from the app itself. And then if we make changes to this file, we can later track those in Devin. So here we're just making a bunch of changes to the scripts. It could also be changes in schema. It could be anything. And after these changes, Devin will then automatically analyze these changes by utilizing the new XML structure of the FMP12 file. So behind the scenes on your development server, we have developed some cool stuff that can now compare these changes. So they show up here. We modified these two scripts. And then the newest feature that we're launching in a few weeks is that you can now see code diffs. So you can click into these scripts that were modified, and then you can see actual changes in the scripts, like if you're familiar with tools like GitHub. So we're really excited about this. And this is running completely outside of FileMaker, so it's super, super fast and powerful on your development server. Let's say that you now you're satisfied with the changes. Then you can save a version of these changes. What this is doing is that it's saving a backup of the file, either a clone or a full backup, you decide. You give that a version number, and the cool thing is, because you have a description and a version number, you have a whole history of changes that you made to this development file that you can later revert to. So if we want to deploy that to another server, for instance, what we can do is that we can connect a branch in Devin to a specific target server and target file. So here I'm releasing it to my main branch because my main branch is connected to my production server. That will be shown in a minute. And because this is connected, it will now automatically show, when we go to the Environments tab, see the release branch is set to main, so now it says update available up there because it knows that it's one version behind. And this is where you define the different options for the FileMaker data migration tool. And here you can deploy it either now or you can schedule it for later. So this is the Otto part of that you may be familiar with. But this is just integrated into the whole versioning as well. So that's the unique thing here. And while the migration is running, it will real-time stream in the data migration tool logs from the command line interface on the respective server as well here. And you can now see it completed. So now it shows that this deployment is on the latest version. So this is really cool for vertical solutions. You might have, for each of your customer, you have just one line, and you can just click deploy on the ones you want to update. So that is an introduction to the tool itself. So the challenges that we had before of solo development now become safe and simple because you get automatic versions in your development server. You don't have to do any manual file namings or anything. It's all stored on your server. And you can easily update and roll back between different deployment servers that you have. So no local development, no need for any of the manual file handling, no file transfers. Well, the file transfers are handled automatically by Devin. And there's no live development because you have the development server. So that's all fixed. Now, for the collaborative development, that apparently became transparent because now everybody can see who made what change. So that the app that you saw before, that's for the full team. Like you can invite team members, and you can see who saved what versions. So, and with the script diffing, you now have transparency in who made what changes. So you don't need to sit down with two files and look who made what script changes, which ones are correct. You can just open the diff view, and you can see, I deleted this, you added that. So that is really nice. So manual file handling became automatic. Now we have built-in change tracking. It is easy to work on the remote files, and it's easy to present these changes. And it's very easy to track what version is on what deployment server. For the more advanced setup where you have a shared development file, you still have the automatic versioning, maybe you have multiple deployment environments. You might even maybe want to push one of the versions to the testing server. You can do that now easily. You just pick one of them. I want to push this to the test server. Then you can specify if now we agreed with version 2 is finally tested through, so we are releasing that to our main branch. We could do that. So we put that to the main branch that is then connected to our prod server. That's basically what was shown in the video just before. So it becomes a very safe development environment where you use the different branches, which is basically just different tracks of your file, and on the server it's just different copies of the file. But Devin makes it really easy to have the overview of that. Yeah. So what version is on what? You can easily see that in the Environments tab. If you need to roll back, you can do that with a click of a single button. It's easy to manage vertical solutions. You just click or schedule the versions that you need. Yeah. So the missing pieces for where we want to go with this product, because it's pretty mature now, but we're still, the golden thing would be if we could merge branches. If we could merge two FileMaker files, that's the dream, right? And Claris is working on something that can do this, but it's not ready yet. But that would allow us with the patch tool, that as they call it, we do have access to it. We are playing around with it, but it's not capable enough yet, and there's no documentation. There's not enough documentation yet. But what it would allow is that we could merge dev branches. So imagine that you have one developer here with a branch and one here, each have their own branch of files. Then when you are ready to deploy or when you want to test, you could merge those files. That would be amazing. So either developer-specific branches, or you could have a specific branch for a feature. So that becomes even more safe. And you could also do more like hotfix deployments, because right now, even though you may use a tool like Auto, you still may do some live development once in a while just to fix a bug or something like that. Ultimately, where we want to go is what we call zero downtime deployments. So you have no downtime on the production server. Well, that's the dream. If we get the patch tool, we might get there, right? Yeah, well, we don't know yet. It's yeah, but this is just the missing pieces for the ideal situation. But our product is still very, very mature. But this is just to let you know what we have not cracked yet. Our product roadmap. So what is coming to our 1.x product line is something that we call pipelines. This will allow you to develop some more automatic workflows. So you could include some testing and some other things that you may want to do within a deployment. Maybe you want to do a backup, you want to kick off users of this file before the deployment happens, whatever. That's something that we are working on. That will also kind of enable automatic regression testing. Something that the video did not show was our testing capabilities, because Devin can actually run FileMaker script tests. I can show you how that works in the Q&A if you're interested in that. But that would allow, the pipelines would allow that you could include those tests in either a release or a deployment. So you could say, I only want to release to my main branch if all the tests succeed. And if not, they would roll back. And we may also be working on, we may be delivering a logging API, but that kind of depends on the amount of requests we have for that. We've previously had a lot of requests for it, but I haven't heard it that much lately. But could be useful to have production logs streamed directly into the Devin workspace as well, so that you see errors come up. You see them there. So the logging API would actually be a custom logging API that we would develop. So in a script, you could call our logging API with your own logging. So you could implement your own info debug error logging. So if you have any issues on a client's solution, you would implement that. Say like if you have an error, you say if error, call this API, that would call the Devin API, and then they would show up real time in the Devin app. So you see, oh, this customer just had an error. So that's the idea behind that. We are also working on a Devin 2.x product line that we want to make a bit more cloud native. Currently, Devin 1.x is basically like installing FileMaker server on your servers. It's just called Devin server. But the server needs to have FileMaker server installed and stuff like that, and it needs to have the FileMaker OData API enabled, the data API enabled. We want to deliver a more, you could say, dynamic kind of API solution that is API first and does not necessarily require FileMaker server. Maybe the whole diffing thing, the XML analysis, would be a cloud service that we provide instead. So you offload that from your development server. So that's something we're working on. It will be like more agent-based workers. And there are also some security reasons why this could, for some customers, make sense to have this kind of architecture. So just to let you know, we are working on these both kind of situations here. Up until now, our releases have been, we launched first in March. We launched our 1.0. It's been a beta for a long time. 1.1 a few months ago, and 1.2 we will be releasing in a few weeks. But we have actually kind of developed a lot of internal DevOps solutions for our own deployment of Devin server, which allows us to now roll out much faster. So you'll be seeing new features more frequently ongoing. And our version 2 roadmap we expect to have like an MVP of that around summer next year. Yeah, that is actually what I had in my presentation. So now there's a Q&A, and I am happy to take answers, and we can also do a live demo and stuff if you need. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm just going to repeat the question because there's a microphone, and so the question was if we have a different way of managing different repositories. And the way that's handled in Devin is that the equivalent of a repository in Devin is just a project. So you create multiple projects in Devin, and you can invite team members to those projects, and those projects can have one or multiple files and be connected to whatever server you want. So that's the answer to that. Yeah? There's no issue with running AutoFMS on the same server if you prefer that for deployments. The only thing that you would, like the services won't interfere with each other. The only thing would be that in your Devin app, you would not have the link between the versions and the deployments. So you wouldn't, and that's kind of like a feature that you may find useful, but it is possible, yeah. You wouldn't have the link between the versions and the different deployments. Because if you don't use Devin for the deployments, Devin doesn't really know what version of the... Oh, of course, no, yeah, there's no issue doing that. No. So Devin server is, a few years ago where Devin was a beta product, it was actually like a bunch of batch scripts and like system level scripts that were triggered by some FileMaker script schedules that was super fragile. Now it's a complete final like executable that is running exactly like FileMaker server is running. So it's a Windows service, for instance, if you have a Windows server. That you can stop and restart through the task manager. So it has matured a lot in that way, and it's not interfering with anything. So yeah. So all communication that currently is between or in this environment is that your developer computers must be able to reach your development server. That's just a regular FileMaker port that is required. And then everything that is connecting to servers, so the Devin development server will just be able to reach your different target servers. And that's over a regular HTTP, the same channel as FileMaker server. And it's using the same SSL certificate installation that is on the FileMaker server itself. With version 2, we made, the architecture is going to change, so it will allow, say, a production server to ask another server, do you have a task for me? Because in some situations you may not want to allow inbound access to a production server, which is required currently in this architecture. We may do some development that could still allow that, because that is something that we get a lot of requests on. But the new architecture will be a lot more like modular, and it also wouldn't require FileMaker server to be installed. So what that allows, we are working with partners right now that would actually allow a migration to happen on kind of like an intermediate server that you dynamically spin up on a very large EC2 instance or whatnot temporarily. So the migration happens there, and then you transfer the file afterwards. So it will be a bit more flexible in that way. Yeah. Yeah, so up until now, Devin 1.1 is actually Linux and macOS compatible. The app is macOS only for now. Our 1.2 release became way bigger than we anticipated, because we were working on 2 simultaneous tracks, Windows Server support and the whole XML analysis diffing, which is actually a separate API that we developed. And yeah, something happened that made them all in the same release. So that has actually caused that the 1.2 now will be released to Windows Server first, and then the other platforms later. So we expect, but no promises, but we expect to release Windows in a few weeks, Linux maybe around New Year, and then macOS some months after that. That's the plan, because we want to release a stable product that is thoroughly tested. So, yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah. Yes, the pricing model for this is a subscription model. Currently, we do have a free version available. With restrictions, you can only have 2 servers in total. You cannot do some automation stuff. And then we have different plans depending on whether you are a solo developer or a team, or you want more enterprise features. Yeah. On our website, devin.fm, you can see more information, and we have a pricing there as well. We also have a booth, so please feel free to come down there and talk pricing or get a private demo or anything that you would like. Yeah? Yeah, sure. So we won't get into the details of how we do that, because that's kind of our proprietary API. Uh, but actually, we have made it somewhat open, because we developed that as a separate API on the server, so that you can actually access that API without using the Devin app. So on your server, there's now a new endpoint that you could use, where you could either get a summary of all the changes, or you could get the actual HTML that you saw. The code diff is an HTML thing, blob, that you can get back as well. But I can show an example. Yeah, exactly. You could make your own scripts or something that would utilize that API to see if there's any changes or whatnot. Let's see how it becomes a bit difficult because it's not mirrored. But okay, so this is. I'll actually just go back to. When you open up the Devin app, this is just to answer the repository question. Here you have your different projects on a list, and you just choose the project that you want. And then it opens a window that now opened on my screen over here. then you get this. This file has 2 different files in it, and don't worry if this looks a bit confusing. Each of these lines is actually a branch, and that is like a separate track of copies of the file. Each dot here is then a backup, so that's a version that you have backed up. So that's either a clone or a full backup on those different tracks. And then you can merge back and forth that it will either copy or replace the file. But I will make an example where I can make a change to our, in here, I choose which branch I want to work off of, and you can see this UI file has _dev. That's done automatically. And on my test branch, it's tests. And if I make a new branch, it will just make a new copy with a new name appended to it. So if I go on dev, here I have my history of versions. These are backups of my development file here. I can connect directly to it from here. It will open up the FileMaker file directly. Then let's do some change. Which ones have? Let's change this to OK maybe. And we will delete this. With whatever. So now when I go back here, I can click on this line and I can run the analysis. And this will now do a lot of magic behind the scenes, saving clones of the active development file and the latest saved version, extract the XML from those, compare them, do it in a very efficient way, and organize it really nice on the server. And then we're actually using Git. So Git is something that is used in GitHub, for instance. So we use Git's command line interface to actually perform these diffs, because we don't want to invent things ourselves that already exist, and it's really powerful. All the requirements for running Devin server is automatically installed when you install Devin. And we also have a special agreement with Claris that automatically bundles the data migration tool, the FM developer tool, the patch tool, including in the Devin server installation. No. And it's also not bundled yet, but we have the agreement that says that we are allowed to. But just to say that, yeah, you don't need to do anything, and Git is also installed, a lot of other stuff is installed. So we see here now, in this sidebar here, I can see information about my file. This I here means the insights. I have different tabs here. This tab shows me code changes. Here I can see scripts and custom functions. I can see database changes, tables, relationships, table occurrences. This is actually just all the different XML catalogs that exist currently. So if Claris adds something to that, we'll be able to also feed that in here. We only made some modifications to scripts, so we can actually click on these, which opened over here again. So we see our script that was called send email notification. We modified the exit script error to OK, so it has a minus and a plus here. And we deleted this line, that's why it's red. And down here we created a new script with a params variable. What is the hard part about this is to extract the stuff you need from the XML. Because if you have seen the XML files, you can't, and they say use your preferred diff tool with the 2 XML files, and you have like millions of lines to scroll through. So that's actually the hard part, is to extract the stuff we need from the XML. The actual diffing is actually quite easy, and we're using the Git CLI for that. But yeah. Yeah, it is a really hard. Yeah, so the question was to how we show the diffs of things that may be hidden in the script workspace. And it's a really hard job of maintaining that because there's so many different parameters. But for most of them, we actually have support for it. If there's no support, we will have some string saying unsupported parameter, something like that. But let's try. Does it say? Is it that one? No. Oh, yeah. It's really hard to see here. Specific order. Oh no. We go back. We can either refresh manually. There's also a setting in the settings here where you can have it done automatically. So it will automatically detect changes. This is running on, this demo thing is running on a Windows server. In our testing, it's about twice as fast on Linux to run this. So it must be something with the FM developer tool, some optimizations there. But still, this allows you to do like near real-time change analysis. And if the file increases, it won't add that much of a delay. So yeah, so we passed that in. Or oh yeah, actually, exactly. In order to track that, I would have to make a new version because because this is comparing to my latest saved version. We will have in the future a drop-down here where we will be able to compare your active development file to any other file. It may be on another branch or something like that. That is basically just an app limitation right now because the backend fully supports that. Okay, so modified script, whatever. So now if I go in and I pick this. I actually haven't tried this, so I'm very curious to see. So now the version we just saved is here now, and this one, the active file, has no changes. Let's see. I have to close this. Yeah, it supports everything that's in the XML catalogs. But so for our first release here, 1.2. No, yeah, okay. So we were not able to catch that. But it may be something that we could add to our tool that does the XML analysis. So it may be possible because I think it is in the XML. So it's the newest XML format that exists. We basically use the FM developer tool to save as XML of 2 clones, and then that's how we extract from there. Yeah, but it may be something that that we just haven't supported because there's so many things, and it's really the XML is really not structured nicely to do this extraction. They may be working on a new XML structure again. That would be nice for us. So we don't really know whether we should wait for that or if we should add on to this because it's a significant amount of work. But just to show, yeah, so regarding the question about the details of other kind of changes. So for this version 1.2, the detailed diffs will only be for code changes, so custom functions and scripts. We haven't made it enough for the rest of the changes. We have the data, but we just haven't figured out a nice way to display it. So the data is there. You can even find it in the folders on the server if you like, because it's all just structured on folders in a folder structure on the server. No, so for instance, if we do that, if I find my file, oh no, if I go manage security, and you whatever, do something like this, that will just only show. It will show the name of the privilege that you changed. It won't show the details that you actually changed. Yes, hopefully. It should show up. Yep, up here we have extended privileges. It shows if MURL script was changed, but it doesn't show the actual detail yet. So yeah. Yeah, sure. So the process of doing a deployment with Devin, first of all, it's all automated, so you don't have to do anything. But on the server itself, what it's doing is that it's taking a clone of the specific development file on your dev server, sending that to the target server, closing down the target file if there's no users connected to it. If there are users connected, it will just be, I can't do it right now, I'll wait. We may implement a feature where you can like force disconnect users, but for now you'll have to schedule it in a way where you know there's no users. Then it will move that file, the original source file on your production server, to a specific migration folder that we create on the production server, perform the migration there. If everything is complete, it will move the new file that is generated through the FileMaker data migration tool back to the database folder and then open the file again. Yeah. You could, yeah. We something that we released in 1.1 was the ability to run post-migration scripts. So the way you would do that, it's basically like an auto if you're using that. So down here, this panel allows you to specify options for the data migration tool. You can also specify a timeout if you want. And here you can select post-migration script, and then a FileMaker script name here that would run after a successful migration. If you click this here that says revert on failure, then if this script does not return with exit script true, it will automatically roll back the whole migration. So yeah, and you can pass parameters to this as well, to the script. Yeah, that's a really good question to do like batch updates of this. So there is a plan for that, but it's currently not in the product. So currently you would have to, yeah, so you would do for this file, click deploy, deploy now or schedule, and then you would do it for your data, deploy, deploy, or schedule it for the same time. Yeah, that's also a really good question. And actually, no, that's not implemented. So the question was whether there's intelligence to wait to migrate the UI file before the data file is complete, right? So that you don't have some files online and offline. Currently, no, unfortunately. But that's a really good feature. Currently, depending on how many concurrent data migrations you will allow on the server, that's something you specify in the settings. It will just trigger both of them at the same time. You need to install Devin server, and that is just as you install FileMaker server. Completely equivalent, like devin-server.exe with a white window, next. Yeah, yeah. So when you install Devin server, it will ask you whether you want to install a development type server or a production type server. Because some dependencies are installed differently. So you're required to have chosen the correct one. Um, that is partly true. Because I said that's what I said. Yeah. So the Devin app is currently like publicly only supported on Mac. It will also work on Windows, but we just can't really make sure that window management and stuff like that is properly managed. But it is just a FileMaker file, actually. This is all native FileMaker. The only thing that's not FileMaker is actually this view in here. So this is just a normal FileMaker file that you could transfer, and there's no local data stored in this file. It's all stored in a separate FileMaker file on your development server. So yeah, but if you're interested in a Windows app version, we could just send you the raw file, and then there's a custom font that you would need to install as well. That's the one providing all the icons. Um, yeah. Yeah. You could, but the preferred, we suggest that you have it locally because it's built to be run locally. And the reason why that is that it then supports that you have a single app that can connect to multiple different development servers. So say that you're part of multiple development teams. So when you log into this app, I can show, then it will let you choose what team you want to connect to. So if I just close, can I do that? Yeah. Wait. So this is a local file. It's not yet connected to our development server. Then if you're part of multiple teams, maybe you want to do that. If you have one customer, you're part of their development server. So this is how you can be part of multiple. And you just press connect, and it connects to the one here. I can quickly show also. So after you have installed Devin server on the server, the way you add it to the app here is in settings and then servers here. So that is very straightforward. You give it a name. You can even choose if you want to get beta updates from Devin. And then you specify some FileMaker admin console credentials. You specify how many migrations do I want to allow simultaneously. Now, Devin will automatically on the server, it has like intelligence in the process that if there's not enough memory left, it won't start migrating. The same goes for the XML analysis. That's also memory heavy. So there's built-in checks for that, but still you may want to limit how many migrations you want to run simultaneously here. Yeah. I know you've made a tool that can do that, right? Well, let's talk. It's not something we've considered, but we could look into what that requires. But yeah. Yeah, yeah. Good question. So we have a deal in place with currently FM Cloud that has the ability to just spin up a server with Devin pre-installed. And we will also roll out more partners ongoing. So we're talking a little bit with others, but I can't mention the names now. But FM Cloud for now. Yeah, it depends on if you want in your development environment to save each time you save a version, that's a backup. If you want to have very large dev files and you want to save them as full backups, then of course you would need a lot of storage. There's not really much required on the production server itself. You decide whether you want to delete the you could say the original source file before the migration, that can be automatically deleted if you specify it. All that can be configured in the settings. Um, Yeah. The only thing for now would be that you would have to manually find those files on your production server, because we put those in a Devin like directory with subfolders and stuff. But yeah. We might also include a feature where you can define some retention, like how many do you want to save, or but yeah, currently on the servers, the migrations happen in unique folders, so they have like a UUID name, like the folder itself. So you wouldn't like in a script be able to find that unless you could communicate with the database maybe to find the migration. We could look into something like that. But it is publicly available, but the name of the folder is a UUID, which is the ID of the migration process in Devin's mind. No, not for each version. Um, but yeah. Anything else? Otherwise, I think I'll just let you off now. There's 5 minutes left.